Okay. I'm just gonna start in my on my screen of who's next, and that Gordon, you're in the spot on my screen to go first.
Yeah, sure. So we at this stage we are rolling out centralized IP address management using AWS IPAM, and basically the goal is to avoid subnet conflicts across environments and projects spread over several AWS accounts, and we have about 15 or 16 or so.
Hmm.
Um, We're starting by configuring access for existing accounts and we'll to automate allocation as we scale. And on the identity side, we've integrated Auth0 across our commons and are migrating from Gen3 user sync into Auth0 roles, basically to improve consistency and simplify access management. So we use the Auth0 console to like assign user to roles, which are then synchronized to uh, Gen3. And also we have a team which is exploring RAMs in the proof of concept phase to support standardized data access request workflows, particularly for controlled data sets across multiple commons. Um, and finally, I don't know if she's on the call. I'm pleased to welcome Nagasri, who was recently joined our team, and she'll be the development engineer for the Omics 3 Gen 3 instance.
She's on the call. Just um, Sarah or someone, can you sh put a shared Google Doc? Or I guess you would do this normally in Slack. It would be good, Gordon, if however we normally do this, you just put those things down as bullets just so that we can track this. Just,
It,
if people don't know the particular Amazon service. And if
yeah,
it's in Slack, which I'm not going to use, Sarah or Michael, just send it to me after the meeting. But if everyone who does the update could just take a minute or two and put those in Slack, then we could all follow it. I'm just trying to make it as efficient as possible for all of us to move as fast as possible to where we're going. Thank you, Gordon. Nice work.
yeah. Thank you. And
Yeah, we
that's
we
all
do
for me.
take notes, but it's good to get them accurate. So we'll make sure if you put your bullets down, we can make sure to capture them, I guess verbatim, and that's a great help. But if you want to go look at past notes, they're all found
Oh,
um,
okay.
in the
Or
GitHub.
in, yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds like we're doing it. So as usual, people could ignore me.
All right. Yeah, welcome, Nagasri, to the group. Uh,
Yeah. Hi. Hi, Megan. Hi, everyone.
Gordon, can I ask a follow-up question on the IPAM thing? I still don't understand like what it's used for. I'm trying to look it up. Can you explain a little bit what it does? Like, is it just the private IPs in the subnets and you have more control over them to the nodes and the pods, or?
So yeah, so basically it's around when you create your VPCs. So
Mm-hmm.
can you imagine you have like hundreds of VPC, then how because you don't want to like have IP address conflicts or
Oh,
overlaps or something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So basically IPAM, when you want to create a VPC, you
Mm-hmm.
request the CEDAR range from IPAM.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Because
so
that is
IPAM gives us.
actually an issue. We basically just work around manually for now. We keep a list of available IP ranges in a markdown sheet, and then we grab one whenever we spin up a new VPC. But that would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Hmm.
this is can you put it in um the service in chat just so we can look at it, Gordon? It looks
Yes,
like it's
sure.
the Amazon VPC IP address manager. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Amazon Virtual Private Cloud. Yeah. Yeah, um I think we've shown positively that if IP conflicts, people get upset. So th it would be good not to have to do this manually. Uh
Yeah.
So going around the room to I guess OHSU. So Liam or Kyle, if you want to give an update.
Yeah, Kyle, feel free to jump in. Right now, we've got our internal instances of Gen3, and we're working on spinning up an external server that's available to outside collaborators. Um, Both of those are right now using Helm, which has worked great for us. We still need to add Argo workflows and a few other nice to haves, but big thanks to the Helm team for putting all that together. I'm sure that was a lot of work, but great work on that.
Thanks. And then Luca or Bektamir, do you have any updates that you want to share?
I just joined late, but no, not from my side.
Okay. Okay.
Same, no updates, yeah.
All right, Alan.
Yes, let's see. We've had our first successful deployment end-to-end using the new Gen3 Terraform, which I'm very, very happy about. That went pretty well from my perspective. I did take notes, as I said last time, about some of the just very small things that I encountered along the way, and I've put in a number of very tiny pull requests that I think would be useful. So hopefully the team will get a chance to look at that, and hopefully they agree. But overall, I mean, with just a few little tweaks, it worked well. So that was great. We just got a request this week for several new, completely new environments for new projects. It's the same group that we've been working with, but they have like a lot of groups, many grants, and so yeah, we're definitely growing as a CSOC, and so all of this was quite even more important than ever for us. So that's good news, bad news. I mean, it's good news, but just like I'm sitting here looking at this list, like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of environments that we have to spin up. Because of course they also want, oh, for this one we want both a prod and a test or demo or whatever.
Alan, can you
So
send
yeah,
local so we could put you under powered by Gen3?
I will as soon as we have something, and I think
Okay.
one of them probably we can send to you sooner rather than later. That's the Indiana Precision Oncology. That's one of them, IPO.
Great.
So yeah, I'll talk to Jing about. I think they have some official logos that we can share. Definitely, we'll do that for sure. And then last thing, I'd mentioned before our interest in Crow, and my resource who was at the last meeting, I think, he promptly went on a required leave for his work status. He had to stop working briefly, but he's back now, just within the last week. But it means we haven't really made any significant progress. He just wrote to me and said he's got a kind of a very simple deployment where he's just getting up a Kubernetes cluster, a VPC, and an EKS cluster using Crow. So long way to go, but we've got him going on that full time now. And I will just mention also on the Crow front, I was at the AWS Public Sector Summit in DC 2 weeks ago, and through our AWS team, I was able to connect with a really good resource, someone who's on the EKS team and involved in Crow and involved in Argo. And we had a chance to just kind of chat, and we're going to stay in touch. And I think they could probably provide some help at some point along the way. So hope to someday soon have something to demo and show people, just to give you a sense of what we're talking about. And hopefully at some point we'd have something we could plug into the wonderful, the admin web console. But well, long way to go. We'll keep you posted. That's it.
Quick question, Alan. Are all of your Gen3 instances then for one PI, or is it multiple groups across the university?
Right now it's a single PI. Yeah. We have another group that we are working with actively. This is for a P30, if I'm remembering right. It's a center on P3A, the Center for Cannabis, Cannabinoids, and Addiction. So it's a NIDA grant. And we are waiting to hear what's going on with that. We're at the end of year 2 for on a 5-year grant, and hoping that we will hear soon. There doesn't seem to be any particular anxiety on the part of the PI, but that is one that we had talked about, when we got to roughly this time, kind of in year 2, year 3. We've had a lot of pilot projects going in that center. There's a number of resources that center users can tap into. They're doing mass spectrometry, and they have some advanced optics with some equipment that was purchased as part of the grant. So anyway, they've got this idea of you have something you want to do and you submit a proposal for a pilot project. So we had a number of those go through. So they're starting to generate some data, and this was about the time we thought would be good to talk to them about, hey, how about we bring up a Gen 3 instance? But again, we're waiting to hear. We've heard kind of I've heard some conflicting things about grants involving substance use disorder and whether or not those would continue to be funded by the NIH. I don't know. Like I said, they're not too anxious, but that by the same token, we have not yet heard anything that says, yep, we got our year 3 and no massive budget cuts or anything, because that would impact everything. So
we should probably push on just because
sorry,
some people have to leave early, but good to hear all the progress.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Okay, Jawad, the floor is yours. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. All right. Cool. So first things first, the Gen3 admin repo, as we mentioned last time, we're gonna make public, and it is now a public repository. Put you guys over here. You can go in and get started. There's a Docker compose file as well that can get you started. You might have to change, I see now, some paths in here, but it should be enough in here to get you started if you want to start testing it locally as well. Cool. There hasn't been too many new developments. There is an intern as well from Google Summer of Code that is working with me on this now, and we're adding some major components now. So soon, hopefully by the next working group meeting, we'll have some fun, exciting updates regarding new functionality in here. And I have some previews that if we have time, I can go over real quick. Anyway, today's meeting is about the cloud automation to Helm migration, which we are currently undergoing right now. We've migrated most of our environments, and we're in the phase of validating and testing when we cut over. So real quick, the biggest motivation for us to move from cloud automation to Helm is to finally start using Helm in production. And there's also some security enhancements. So the admin VMs, as we know them, they stored all of their secrets in plain text stored in the Gen3 secrets folder, which is actually not great from a security perspective. Whoever has access to the admin VM will have full access to the secrets, database passwords and whatnot. So basically, we want to go into a more modern way of doing secrets management, and this Helm way allows us to do that. And at the same time, we'll get some freebies like a better GitOps integration instead of the homebrewed one. So we're using Argo CD, but there are other tools that people can use if they want to do it. And then we also get the separation that we're looking for, where we manage our infrastructure completely separate from the actual deployments. So the migration strategy that we're doing a blue-green deployment. So we're basically spinning up a Helm namespace alongside the cloud automation namespace, but it's all pointing at the same databases and everything. So it's the same secrets and same configuration, just running a duplicate environment. And then while we're testing, the operator can update their local host file, and then they can point it at the new load balancer, and then we get to do the testing as well. Some of our services do require, so within this Helm namespace, to also reach out through DNS and reach our services. So for that, we've developed a mutating webhook that we're using that any namespaces with Helm in their name basically gets the same thing added on the pod level. So the basically in this example, gen3.example.com would resolve to this load balancer. Yeah. That's just real quick about the high-level migration strategy. And if you're following our approach, there are some prerequisites that you have to take in account. So Argo CD is the one that we use. It's used to do continuous deployment with all of the configuration stored in Git. And the way we can do that is all of our secrets, they live in AWS Secrets Manager. So you need to have deployed external secrets operator with access to AWS. There's some links in this presentation as well that you can follow for documentation on how to set that up. And then we use Terraform and TerraGrunt for our infrastructure management. Unfortunately, the TerraGrunt repo is not public, but I will do a little preview of how we are structuring our directories and how we do TerraGrunt over Terraform. That basically gives you a GitOps approach to manage all of our infrastructure, basically. Cool. So the migration step that we're undertaking, we've developed a tool that can take your existing cloud automation development or deployment, and then it will create and migrate all of your secrets into AWS Secrets Manager, and it will spit out a values YAML file that is clean for with no secrets in it and pre-configured for all of the services as they are today. Yeah, so that's basically the first step. This script lives in the cloud automation repo, and it's a Python script. It's rather lengthy. It was developed by Aiden, I believe. So yeah, it goes in, finds all your manifests, all your secrets, and converts into a Helm compatible format. I mentioned Terraform and TerraGrunt. So a step 2 in all of this, which is still, it's not an automated process. We have to do this manually, but we have to go in and create IAM roles for service accounts, basically giving all of our services identities in AWS so that they can access the things that they need. We've also made a Terraform module for this. It's a generic one where you will create a IAM role with some policy attached to it and a service account reference so that you can just connect it back to EKS if you're running this in Amazon, basically. The way we do it, so this is the private repo. This is for one of our environments. We have basically all of our services that require a identity in the cloud. And then we basically go in and we create these here. So this is the beauty of TerraGrunt, where you can, for a whole environment, everything that we need, we can have them in sort of a folder. So the way we've structured it, we have an AWS folder with all of our different AWS accounts in there. And then per environment, we can go in and deploy multiple Terraform modules at once. We have configured something called Atlantis. So you can see at some of our pull requests, you can go in and all the Terraform applies and everything basically happens in Git. So you can audit and see who made what changes to all of your infrastructure. And it's been working out really great for us. Yeah, so this used to happen in cloud automation, but now we have it all in GitOps. Anyway, yeah, once we've done all of the IRSA accounts, we can then move forward, which is the step 3 in the migration process. It's about setting up the Gen3 GitOps repo. Another good news is that this repo is now public. So you can follow along and see how we've set up all of our environments. There's also a integration test thing. So the new CI/CD or CI tests that were written by our QA team are now running in GitHub Actions, and you should be able to follow along on some of this. We're actively making changes and making these faster and better. But what these can help you do is help you test your whole environment when you're creating PR based on the values YAML that are being provided. And yeah, so you can also see our folder structure. So I was just showing heal pre-prod environment. So for us, the folder structure is underneath the environment that we're doing. We have a values folder with all the values YAMLs. And then you have the actual Argo CD application as well. So here
you can see that this is the values file that I was just referencing. This is the release name that we chose for this release. So if you want to pull from a separate branch, for example, of Helm, you can do that in here. And yeah, the changes that you make here, you make a PR, you merge them in, and they're instantly deployed out to whichever environment. And for us, the PR check also includes the integration tests, which are kind of nice because they also spin up an ephemeral environment. So you can go and click around until it's cleaned up, as well as run the whole test suite that is being developed by the Gen3 QA team. But yeah, so once you've set up Argo CD, you configure it with your application, it'll start deploying it. And this is the process that we've been doing. And then the last step is the most important step. It's the validation and testing, and that is the stage that we are at currently. So you would go in, the operators who are testing and making sure there's no regression in this new Helm-based environment compared to the functionality of the old environment. Go in, test, and document any faults or any differences. And then we actively go back, we update this the tool that we've developed to also include anything that we might have missed. And then we also just go in, update the GitOps repo with any of these new values YAML changes. And yeah, so once we are at a stage where all of our environments, or at least the environments have been tested, the teams are happy, we can do a cutover. We no longer need to do this etc host and the mutating webhook, and the users will not even notice the difference, but they will be in a Helm-based environment. So that is the high-level plan. So I think by the end of this week, we will be turning off all of our admin VMs. And we will, for now, until we have the CSOC portal fully production ready, give people access with something, just a generic jump box. So it is very similar to what an admin VM does in its nature, where you can have controlled access to the production sites. For us, we're using Amazon Linux 23 with FIPS enabled as the jump box so that we can give tech leads or others controlled access to the Kubernetes cluster, or if they want to go in and look at the databases, Elasticsearch, or just do some AWS CLI operations. Yeah. Our plan is to not enable SSH, but rely on AWS SSM or the system manager for shell access, because it generates audit logs directly in AWS so that we can basically see what people are doing in there. And then the most important part is that there's no actual secrets stored on this box itself. And yeah, so it is very similar to the admin VM, but there are no secrets in there.
I want to thank you and the entire team. I'm going to think of the fireworks on July 4th as celebrating the fact that we've made this transition. So I know this was a lot of work over a long time period, but it's a really nice step forward.
It is. It'll be really, really nice to finally have this rolled out. And then we have some fun plans to make some better improvements. So first of all, just make the CSOC portal more ready and being able to use that more places. And yeah, we have some GitOps improvements that we're already working on. So we can maybe do an example here. So if you look at the heal pre-prod environment that we were just looking at, that's not it. You can see that this values YAML file, since we're doing all of the portal configuration and a lot of the images in here, which is not really a best practice. So our goal is to shorten this and take out a lot of the files that we can, and rather have a reference to where they are in Git. And then when the application starts, it pulls it from Git naturally, or like using an init container or something. So that way, the configuration file will be much smaller and easier to review and audit, essentially. Yeah. We're also going to have some quality of life improvements. So today we have some Slack bots that our project managers or others can use to basically update all of the services to the latest release or something. So we're definitely looking into that. And then the next step would be to add Helm charts to our whole release process so that we can release the Gen 3 chart with like a release tag with all of the images that are in that release have already been tested. So we don't have to go in and update individual services. You just point it at a tag for the Gen3 Helm chart. And then you know that these images and everything in that chart have been tested together and is a stable release, essentially. Yeah. And obviously something that we're getting now is the whole CI tests running directly in GitHub Actions, basically. There's one more component here. So if you guys have been following our Helm chart repo, or if you just pull in the latest changes, you might have noticed that there are some crossplane related changes. So crossplane is an in-between thing between Terraform and Kubernetes, where each service just within their Helm charts can define their cloud requirements. So we were looking at the Terra Grunt repo earlier here. And so for example, for all of these services, so audit service requires a IAM account, an SQS queue, an SNS topic or something. So our goal is to have all of that configuration just directly within the Helm charts, so that you don't need to go in and manually configure some things via Terraform, some things via Helm, but everything basically just happens within the Kubernetes cluster. There is sort of a blurred line. Where do you draw the line between managing infrastructure and deployments? So we have to find the right balance there, essentially. But the IRSA, or the cloud identities for each application, is a sort of a low-hanging fruit, but then we can basically put crossplane as a prerequisite to manage those identities. And then within the Helm charts, you can define, okay, so audit service should have this level of access to that AWS service, and it also spins up that part for you. But the networking and the clusters and everything else is still managed with Terraform. This also gives us, in our CI environments, easier way to spin up cloud resources and tear them down rather than having shared resources between all of our CI environments. There's a proof of concept that we've tried out so far, but it's not ready for prime time just yet. Crossplane itself is relatively new. Yeah. And just the latest thing, something that I've sort of been working on that will be integrated into the CSOC portal eventually. So here you can see I'm just running a kubectl proxy command on my shell, and just using the Kubernetes API, we can get access to things that are happening in the databases. So here you can go and you can look at the structure of the database. You can see what indexes have been set up, and you can see what activity is running on that database, some connections, and you can also run queries. I think this would be a really, really good way to give developers and others access and insight into like how all of the databases, at least the Postgres ones, are being set up in Gen3. So this is just a empty audit database that is running on my dev environment. But the idea is to have this view. This is running PG Web, integrated into the CSOC portal after we've finished up all of the auth-z stuff, essentially, so that you can give control access to databases to developers or others that basically would administrate a Gen3 installation. This is yeah, I think that was most of what I was going to go through. So I'm sure people have a lot of questions. So yeah.
Great, thanks, Jawad. I had a question right off the bat, I guess. What's the future for the cloud automation repo, or generally, like what? Yeah.
Yep.
Future for that.
So the remaining pieces that are in cloud automation that we still rely on mostly are the Squid whitelist files, but that's also on our to-do list to split out, to have them separate, and also allow the community to run their own whitelist, basically, so that whatever we whitelist doesn't necessarily mean that it also happens for the community. The Terraform part is already split out. And then basically the long-term goal is to be to archive that repo and split out all of the smaller pieces that are still there that we might need for the future.
Okay, so archive and not support, I guess, if somebody wants to use it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Give some warning on that, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
All right, Alan, you have your hand up?
Yeah, first, let me say thank you. This is all so wonderful. And I mean, sharing the GitOps repo in particular for those of us trying to follow your lead. This is great. Thank you. Question is about secrets. I see the script you're talking about for migrating existing. My question is about brand new. If I'm doing a completely new deployment using the Terraform code, as far as I know, and I'm looking at the docs, it says it's in development currently. There's the creation just to basically skip it, right? Like if we're not migrating an existing, we don't want to have to migrate, right? We just want to create the secrets from the get-go. But I think that's still missing. True?
No, I think that's already happening. I will double check, but I can just go over quickly in the Terraform repo. It might be happening not in the main comments module, but there's a separate one for Gen3. So there's a Gen3 module that we've set up, and
okay.
that one does all the secrets. And so basically, the comments module would set up all of the base infrastructure. So this is sort of the same split that we were talking about with Crossplane as well. So the secrets and all of the other things would basically be populated by something else. But this goes in, it sets up all of the different, I guess, if databases that are needed by the services, creates the secrets in AWS Secrets Manager, creates all the service accounts. So if you're not migrating this Gen3 module in the Terraform there, it basically sets up all the service level secrets and configuration and smaller things like an S3 bucket or whatever we might need. That also gives you a template of a values YAML that is ready to deploy based on whatever was created in AWS.
Okay, great. I will take another look at that. Just Michael, make a mental note. There may be a gap in the docs that it needs to be updated to reflect this. And even if it is there, I would put in a request for another wonderful tutorial from somebody to just kind of show a very simplified deployment, kind of end to end, including this piece that you just outlined. Thank you.
That's a good idea. I think we need to add some more YouTube videos. We've had some positive feedback on those.
Well, there's going to be the community forum next week is about deployment. So I don't know if that'll get covered in that though. You're having a presentation. Maybe that's a little out of scope. We can maybe set up a separate one, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know who was first, Gordon or Bektimir.
I can go. So I have two questions. One is there a plan to support OIDC, for example, 0? Two, what's required to integrate Gen3 admin with existing like Gen3 deployment?
So is the OIDC question for the Gen3 admin portal?
Yes.
Yep. So we do plan to do that. Let me share my screen again so I can show. Yeah. So we do have some level of OIDC here already. It's just it's not great. So basically there is a JavaScript library in the front end that integrates with Keycloak. So we have Keycloak and that one has OIDC. So Keycloak acts as whatever Fence is doing today. That way you can get access through whatever OIDC provider that you would like to have, which you can configure. Right now, this is just on my local thing, but we would have to run a Keycloak instance. And then here you can configure identity providers that are based on SAML or OIDC. Me and my intern's goal is to also get auth Z in here But if you can't make auth-z work properly, we probably will combine this with Arborist so that you can control the access through user YAML. But there are things here, so like realm roles and groups and stuff that I have to basically understand in order, like, how do we even do auth-z in Keycloak? I have no idea. But that's the goal, basically, to try to figure that out. So yeah. The second question was, if you are integrating existing deployments into this, it's as easy as you set up this portal. There should be a, anyway, I don't know if the Helm chart is done and out yet, but the Helm chart will be able to deploy this, which will be the agent, the API, and the front end. Sorry, the API and the front end. And then the agent, you can basically, as long as you can reach this back from whatever you're deploying. So if this is in your hub or CSOC account that can reach all the others and you have VPC peering set up, you basically add the import existing. So if you have, for example, you mentioned some, I don't know, Australia oncology. I don't know if I'm just making it up, but either it's prod or dev. This will then generate this for you. So a secret with the certificates that you would need, a service account for the agent. So here you can limit what the agent is allowed to do in your cluster. So this is just a cluster admin role for now, but in the future you can go in and tweak to make this just a read-only agent or whatever, and then just deploy this in your cluster where Gen3 is running. It then connects back, and based on that, you can go in and see that. And then you can have a look at all of your Helm deployments, and you can also, so these are Gen3 only, but you should be able to look at any of these other ones that are deployed there as well. And then, yeah, then you can start browsing and seeing like what nodes do you have there, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's basically just having to deploy this agent so that it can reach back to this main hub or whatever you want to call it. So it's very generic in that sense. Yeah, and in the future, we are going to make this whole page less cluster dependent, but rather more Gen3 specific, so that you can, select this deployment specifically, and then you can look at what's going on in there. We're adding some sort of observability pages. Okay, not that one, but this one was it. Anyway, we're basically making this whole thing be more Gen3 environment specific, and all the Kubernetes stuff is basically going to be more what is going on with my environment rather than what is going on in Kubernetes. Yeah. I'm not connected to VPNs. I can't load the Grafana stuff, but this is what I was going to show, the Grafana integration. Anyway, I hope that answered your questions.
Yeah, it's very cool. Thanks. Yeah.
All right, back to Mir.
Yeah, so I had a question regarding the Helm secrets, basically. If you have anything similar to values.yaml, like secrets.yaml, or so, or how do you manage the secrets, basically? So, and another question is basically how do you do the deployments, basically, or like pull the Argo CD, pull it out, or GitHub Actions workflow files will be triggered basically on cutting the releases or merging to the main, because I see the two workflow files in the GitHub folder. Just like one is for integration, Helm validation, and then integration tests, right? So yeah, do you have anything for the deployments?
Yep. So you will see that in our values YAML file, instead of secret, there's just references to where the secrets are. And I think they usually, yeah. So this is the caveat. This is a big file, so it's hard to search through. But here you see for the Cedar service, which is used in Heal, there are some external secret references. So these are all just secrets that are stored in AWS Secrets Manager. So that's, wait, not this one, this. So that's what this external secrets operator does. It takes secrets that are stored in, they might have a diagram here as well. In, for example, AWS Secrets Manager, GCP, or HashiCorp Vault. And then it syncs them and creates Kubernetes secrets. So they just need to be in the right format in whatever they're stored. And then from your application's point of view, it'll just see the secrets as it would be if you would have created them through the Helm values file. Yeah. We're also
The
working.
values for those secrets are, you're not mentioning them in the Terraform files, right? You're creating the values and then are you overriding them by going to the external secrets manager or?
Yeah, so you can change them in whatever Vault store secret store, and you can just update them through the UI or some other things. And then whenever they're updated here, they're synced back to whatever namespace that are referencing them. So they're updated in Kubernetes as well. Terraform will generate some initial versions of every secret using the Gen3 module. But if you do need to make changes, this is where you would do it. Yeah. So you just have to basically manage access to the AWS Secrets Manager, where the secrets are actually stored. So that's the source of truth, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then the second portion was the actual deployments for the like Argo CD part. So if you could tell more about that.
Yeah. So basically you can see how we're doing it. It's a application. So this is a Kubernetes resource. You can just take this YAML and apply it like you would with any other Kubernetes YAML. There should be some docs here that can guide you through how it works. But basically you will see this UI in your Argo CD and it will deploy the Helm chart. So in this GitOps, you can see that we're referencing our Helm repo, a branch that we've created in the Helm repo, and then you basically give it some Helm specific configuration. So the release name, where to pull the values from. So here we're pulling them from a values repo, which is basically this Gen3 GitOps repo, which is configured as a source down here. So you would have your own repo URL here where you would have your GitOps. This may be a private repo as well. That's how we first did it, but then you have to configure it. There's some work you have to do in Argo CD so that it can authenticate with GitHub and pull private repositories. But that's basically it. So we do deploy Argo CD in every cluster rather than having a centralized one, just to have a better split so that we're not overlapping too much, and not to overload the Argo CD server as well, so that it has to manage, all of a sudden hundreds of deployments instead of 2 or 3. And it's a relatively small application to have on the Kubernetes clusters.
Okay.
Yeah, but maybe we can, as we're making the end-to-end tutorial where we're spinning up a VPC, getting all the secrets up and running the Kubernetes cluster, we can also maybe talk about the Argo CD portion of it.
Argo CD, okay. And did you have Argo CD deployed on the same cluster as the applications, or like a separate cluster?
Same. So in all of our clusters that are running applications, they run a separate Argo CD.
No, I meant like let's say you have a EKS cluster 1, and then are you deploying Argo CD itself to that cluster?
Yeah, to all of them basically. So if this is 2 multiple Argo CDs, we're doing Argo CD in this one, and we're also doing Argo CD in here.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So it's basically just in charge of managing everything in here, rather than one Argo CD having to manage all of the clusters and everything. We did think about it, but the overhead is just not worth it. So it's just a local resource managing happening inside its own cluster, and that's the boundary of each Argo CD for us. Yeah.
How about the Terraform, the code itself? Where you're running the Terraform and Terragrant files from? You have like, are you applying that from GitHub, or are you applying from?
Yeah. So you can do it in GitHub Actions as well, but we are using a tool called Run Atlantis. So Atlantis basically sits there and watches for the pull request that you're making into
Mhm.
your Terra Grunt repository. And then it runs the Terraform for you. So we can just have Atlantis have the cloud credential, so the AWS credential itself. But you could do this in GitHub Actions as well, if you wanted to. But we use this tool called Run Atlantis. I can add that to a link in here as well.
Okay.
Uh,
Is it like for managing the state files or
the state files are in S3.
S3?
Yeah, states file are always in S3, and yeah, so Atlantis basically just executes things, so runs a plan. Let me see if I can find an example. Here you can see you just comment Atlantis apply, and then it will go in and apply whatever changes that you see here. This is what it's going to do, and blah blah blah. Yeah.
And where do you run this command from? Like from your local
Oh,
laptops?
you just comment on the PR. So if I did Atlantis apply
Oh,
now,
okay.
it would see that and then run it. But Atlantis is just running in one of our Kubernetes clusters, and we've configured it to watch pull requests in this repository, essentially. So all of the Terraform basically goes through a GitOps process, and this needs to have an approval before it can be applied, so that there is checks and balances in place
Mm-hmm. Oh, makes
and
sense. Yes.
auditability. Yeah.
And that's like a per account basically, right? The Atlantis service.
Yeah, yeah, we've split it up so that it's per account, and then yeah, maybe we should do a more in-depth write-up of how we're using TerraGrunt, how we're using Atlantis, because I think that could be helpful. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Longer term, though, we are maybe looking to move it into the CSOC portal, so that might also change.
Yeah, because from one of my understanding, you have a cluster itself, but Atlantis running in that cluster. But how do you create that Kubernetes cluster initially with
Right. Yeah, when you're starting from scratch. I think you would have to just run the Terraform locally or from a jump box or somewhere like a VM, essentially, to get the first cluster up and running. So the bootstrapping part still needs to be done. There is no automation for that yet. Yeah.
Alan, looks like you have a question.
Jawad, in the Gen3 admin, do you have a role other than admin working now? Last time you did a demo a couple months ago, I think you only had admin.
There's still just the admin role.
Okay.
Yeah.
You went by very quickly, so I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, there's still just the admin role. Yeah, we're working on basically getting more granular roles, but we haven't cracked that yet.
But that is the idea, right? That eventually you'll be able to delegate to somebody, let's just call them a developer for the sake of argument, to say, here, you have the ability if you want to create a new cluster, but you can't go in and change other things. Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. And then some like roles, we have to still define them, can like kick off some housekeeping jobs, like kick off ETL or whatever, but they can't, create a cluster. So yeah. Once we have it working, we'll start defining the roles and how you can define your own roles, and yeah.
Any other questions for Jawad? Okay, great. Thanks, Jawad. Well, we're almost ready to wrap up, but we need to think a little bit about what we want to talk about next month, or what we'll present then. I think there was some chatter that maybe Chromeware OCC could present, but they're not on the call, so I can't just say that they will, I guess. Was there anything else up in the air that folks would want to present on, or ideas for the next meeting? Okay. All right. Well, you can feel free to send ideas to me offline, and we'll send that out. We'll send out the recording and slides for this, and maybe post it in the community channel since I think folks beyond this group might be interested as well. Anything else anybody wanted to cover today before we break? Okay.
Thank you all then, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Bye.